Hello, my name is Heather Hodge. About 2.5 years ago, I was given a prescription for learning. For several years after receiving a bachelor's degree in telecommunications from Indiana University, I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Through a variety of jobs, I discovered what would eventually become a career in continuing medical education. My first exposure to this field came at the American Society for Clinical Pathology. While I worked in the education department, most of what I focused on was course logistics, but I learned a little about what it takes to plan a program from colleagues in the department, and I was interested and intrigued. After some moving around due to my husband's job, including a stop in Austin at the Texas Medical Association, I eventually made it to the American Association of Neurological Surgeons, where I really began to hone my skills in program planning, faculty development, evaluation, and accreditation of CME programs. While there, I began to think about a master's degree, but I wasn't sure I was ready. During my time at AANS, I was also exposed to several of the main learning theories, such as behaviorism, constructivism, and cognitivism, through some of the professional development courses I attended. And while I had a basic understanding of these theories, I didn't really know how to use them or apply them directly to my work. I then moved to the American Society of Anesthesiologists, where my responsibilities were solely related to compliance and maintaining ACCME accreditation, which I soon realized was not all that I wanted to do. Plus, I think that it's very important to be involved in the design and development of the activity in order to really meet those accreditation requirements. So in the late winter of 2013, I accepted a position as the Director of Education at the Congress of Neurological Surgeons. It was there that I was given the prescription for learning. A condition of my employment was that I pursue a master's degree. This is what ultimately led me to apply for the Master of Education with an emphasis in Adult Education and Training program at Colorado State University. I'm not sure I would have pursued this degree if it hadn't been mandated, but I was actually very excited and a little bit nervous to start. I have since left CNS and moved to the American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine, where I continue to apply the things I've learned in this program. My goal upon starting the program was to discover more about methods of learning and more about how adults and specifically physicians learn, so that I can develop the best and most effective educational strategy for the members and committees that I serve. A secondary goal was to learn more about how to effectively manage my employees. As I moved into managerial roles, I began to fully realize the importance of this. My responsibilities as a manager of people are very important to me. I feel that a significant part of those responsibilities include developing and mentoring my staff. In an informal way, I learned many years ago that we all have different ways of learning. While we tend to think of this in the sense of classroom learning, it is also very applicable to a work setting, especially when an individual starts a new position or when a new project is introduced. It is imperative as a manager that I understand that each person may approach these new responsibilities from a different learning style. Some may approach from a hands-on kinesthetic perspective, some may approach from a visual style, and some from an auditory style. It was affirming to learn throughout the program that this is in fact true, and that it factors heavily into how adults learn and retain information. I now often find myself saying to coworkers that not everyone is wired the same way, and that while the way some people work is very frustrating to others, the same may be true in reverse. One of the biggest challenges I have faced in this master's program is one that I wasn't expecting prior to it. That is, trying to complete assignments and projects from the standpoint of someone who doesn't teach, but is more involved in the instructional design aspect. I work with subject matter experts who create and deliver content. I attempted to consider concepts based on the very few teaching opportunities I have had, and also on the multitude of courses that I've been involved in designing and then watching them being delivered, and on my role as a mentor to my staff and to other staff in the office. Early in the program, I was exposed to John Dewey's concept of progressive education, which laid the groundwork for my interest in constructivism and experiential learning as it pertains to CME. Many CME activities include some key qualities of Dewey's progressive education, including an emphasis on learning by doing, such as cadaver labs and simulation courses, and using a variety of learning resources in an attempt to encompass different learning styles. This latter concept is receiving attention in CME literature, as indicated in the Spring 2015 Journal for Continuing Education in the Health Professions, where an analysis of 8 new systematic reviews on the effectiveness of continuing medical education solidifies what previous systematic reviews showed, which is that exposure to multiple modalities and multiple events will increase the likelihood of a change in performance and subsequent change in health outcomes, as is required of accredited providers. This helped me to realize that redundancy is not necessarily a bad thing as long as the redundancy is in different modalities. Constructivism encompasses several perspectives, including, as already mentioned, Dewey's progressive education, Vygotsky's zones of proximal development, Leib's situated cognition theory, and Kolb's experiential learning theory. Lev-Vygotsky's concept of zones of proximal development suggests that activities be designed that are more difficult than students may handle alone, but not so difficult that they can't be resolved with the support of peers or teachers who model appropriate strategies. Based on that is Leib's situated cognition theory, which states that learning is tied to authentic activity, context, and culture. Both Vygotsky's zone of proximal development and Leib's situated cognition theory are apparent in medical residencies and fellowships. So as I went about filling my prescription for learning, I realized that both can also be applied to attending physicians who are learning new procedures. Using anchored instruction by providing cases in a variety of methods, such as videos, live demonstrations, cadaver labs, and online cases, and from the perspectives of several experts, will help to ensure that learning transfer occurs. As mentioned earlier, it is required that the organization I represent is able to show that CME changes a physician's knowledge, competence, performance, or that there is a change in health outcomes. As I moved through the program, I realized that using an instructional design process will help to ensure that this change takes place. My goal became more specific. How can I help ensure that there is learning transfer and retention of information that will help show a change in physicians' knowledge, competence, or performance? The answer partially came with Kolb's experiential learning theory. Kolb states that educators should ensure that activities are designed and delivered in ways that offer each learner the chance to engage in the manner that suits them best. This again ties into the multiple modalities and different learning styles already mentioned. Also, individuals can be helped to learn more effectively by the identification of their lesser preferred learning style and the strengthening of these through the application of Kolb's experiential learning cycle. Ideally, activities and materials should be developed in a way that draws on abilities from each stage of the experiential learning cycle and takes the learner through the process. There are a variety of ways to ensure learning transfer in medical education takes place, some of which are already being done or which can be easily incorporated into activities. In some instances, the type of format used may increase learning transfer itself. For example, hands-on cadaver courses where the learners are also able to practice procedures will help increase learning transfer. Also, so much medical education is case-based, which helps to increase learning transfer. And finally, ensuring that there is opportunity for question and answer will help to increase learning transfer. In online education, this can be done via a discussion board. To be more specific, I am currently working on a case-based learning series for orthopedic sports medicine surgeons. The activity will be online and include a pre- and post-test assessment, the case itself, references, a discussion board for each case, and follow-up survey. The chart above shows which of Kolb's learning style abilities is met by each activity and the corresponding learning transfer technique. Regarding multicultural education, I looked at this from a little bit of a different perspective. Instead of looking at it from the standpoint of how I can create education to meet the diverse physician population, I looked at how physicians can better serve their diverse patient population. This would not only benefit the patient, but it would benefit society and medicine as a whole. When a physician takes the Hippocratic Oath, they agree to abide by certain ethical standards, including a pledge to use their best ability and judgment and to do what's best for the patient and not for the physician. Some are faced with ethical dilemmas when, for example, a person's religious beliefs don't allow a doctor to use their best ability or judgment. How do they then reconcile this? By becoming more aware of these multicultural ethical situations, they will be better prepared to talk not only with the patient but also with the family, thus providing better, more compassionate care and feeling more confident doing it. This helps everyone involved in the situation. Evoking a change in the way a doctor feels about these issues and the way they communicate with their patients is beneficial to all. As I reflect upon what I have learned in this program, I can honestly say that it was everything I had hoped for and more. I learned about a sometimes overwhelming number of learning theories and how to apply them and why it's important to apply them. And while some of the activities that I inherited use great learning transfer and retention techniques, I now understand how to use them and why it's important to use them. So when I am working with the subject matter experts to design activities, I am able to explain why we need to incorporate a pre and post test and why I need them to include references, or why I need them to facilitate online discussions or to be sure to leave time for question and answers. Lastly, I remember working in the past with a doctor who wanted a criteria for any new material to be that it's unique and not been done before. I now am able to say that it doesn't have to be new, but it should be different either in format or presenter, because a different perspective or modality can help meet different learning styles and thus increase learning transfer. This cartoon really struck a chord with me, and I think it's applicable not only to medicine but to every profession. Just because we complete our formal classroom education doesn't mean we are done learning. What do I plan to do to keep up to date and to also utilize what I've learned? My short-term immediate goals are to continue to organize and implement a variety of new checklists to help ensure a formal ID process is being used by me and my staff, including ensuring that learning transfer and retention techniques are built into the education, along with ways to measure transfer and retention. Another goal is to launch a learning management system within the next year, which will help me to offer methods to help with transfer and retention. I would also like to take the experiential learning class in Colorado next summer. Within 5 years, I plan to still be a director of education and to feel like the ID process is second nature. I also hope to get more involved in publishing in the Journal of Continuing Education and Health Professions, and to be a regular presenter at industry conferences. My tenure goal is to advance to a position as an executive director of a medical subspecialty society, which is something that I had not really thought of until I started this program. In this role, I would be responsible for the service and administrative functions of the organization, including strategic planning, professional development, financial management, fundraising, and member services. I hope there will never be a time when I stop learning, whether it be about the latest format of delivery for a CME activity or to figure out how to use word art in a PowerPoint presentation. I plan to spend a lifetime fulfilling my prescription for learning.